Hey everybody, welcome back. Sorry it's been a minute since I got anything out. Hectic days, but um I'm back now. So I'm going to go mostly through YouTube comments in this video, but we're going to start with a couple of things that have come up over the last couple of days and talk about them. So this is the first one. It was an article. The Walking Dead renewal discussions are in progress with Netflix deal expiring, says AMC CEO. So I'm going to read the caption here. With its current Netflix streaming deal nearing the finish line, AMC is already in talks about what comes next. During a call with Wall Street analyst CEO Kristen Dolan confirmed the company is in conversations about a potential renewal. The original series, which wrapped in 2022 after 177 episodes, is set to return to AMC's control in less than a year, and the numbers prove it still has serious bite. In the second half of 2025 alone, The Walking Dead pulled nearly 500 million hours of viewership on Netflix. Okay, so this is super exciting, but I just want to point out that it confirms everything we've been saying since the flagship show ended. Okay, so I've explained this a lot of times, and it's because they came out and explained it when they decided to end the flagship show. And for some reason, I mean, I think TDers follow it pretty well, but there's a lot of people in the fandom that just refuse to acknowledge what they're telling us, what they are actually telling us about the show. What they said was that because of streaming rights, they want to have obviously their own show, their own intellectual property, you know, The Walking Dead, the whole universe on their streaming platform. So back in 2012 and 2020 and 2014, and you know, when it was first getting started, it was actually very lucrative at the time to create a deal with Netflix because Netflix was the only streaming platform and everybody had Netflix, and that was the way to get a lot of watches even after it had already aired on cable. But of course, things evolved over the last 10 or 15 years, and now everybody has their own platform. And because of their Netflix deal, they couldn't have The Walking Dead on AMC Plus, right? That because their deal with Netflix said it had to be exclusive to Netflix. But the deal that they did with Netflix, the contract said that once the show ended, Netflix retained rights to it for 5 years, and then it would revert back to the studio, to AMC, and then they could have it on their platform. So I have explained many times that this is why they ended the flagship show and switched to spin-offs, because the spin-off is a new entity, so it doesn't have that contract with Netflix, and those of course can be on AMC Plus, but they wanted this to revert back to them, so they had to end the show as soon as they could and then wait the 5 years. And so this is just confirmation of that. It's been almost 5 years, and in another year the contract with Netflix will end, and then we will actually be able to get all of The Walking Dead on AMC Plus. So that's just what this is saying. And it's interesting that they're talking about renewal discussions. Um, we keep saying that they're going to come back together in a main show with all of the characters, right? And they've already told us that. But it's interesting that they're talking about a renewal, like it almost might be the same show or something. I mean, I'm sure they'll have to name it something a little bit different or, you know, do something legal to make sure that all the terms of the contract are met. But it's probably going to be, you know, they had Fear the Walking Dead. They can do The Walking Dead colon, you know, something else. And so it's just really interesting. And this is why Andrew Lincoln has been in talks to come back and play Rick again. I mean, you guys, it's all happening. And we've been saying it's going to happen exactly like this. So I just wanted to point that out and how interesting it is. And that it just shows that everything we've been saying is right. And in this case, I mean, this is not like a theory or a Beth return thing. This is just us listening to what they're telling us and believing them so that when this sort of thing happens, we're not shocked by it, right? Whereas other people go, no, no, it's over. It's been going too long. They killed everybody off, you know. Norman's not going to play Daryl anymore and all this stuff. And it's like, no, I mean, that's not what they're telling us, right? Okay, so that was the first thing. This is the second thing, and it's not as big a deal. It's just kind of something interesting to take note of. At this stage, AMC has not included season 3 of Dead City in its publicly announced 2026 schedule. In general, when a series does not appear in the annual schedule presented to investors and the press, it means either that it is planned for later in the year and has not yet been scheduled, or that it has been pushed to the following year. Many analysts now believe that the series might not air until late 2026 or even early 2027 if AMC decides to further space out the broadcast within the Walking Dead universe. For now, this isn't an official announcement of a postponement, but rather an indication based on the series' absence from the 2026 schedule. Now, given that we've seen them do a lot of filming, this is a little bit odd. We expected it earlier, but keep in mind it also says this is not an official announcement of postponement. And Galadriel Jones looked into this and pointed out that this is actually not anything terribly new for Dead City. So she says they're clearly withholding information from the fan base, and it must be for good reason. For the record, last year, the premiere date for Dead City Season 2 was announced on February 25th, which is later than this, for a May 4th release. So we're not actually behind schedule for announcements. It was originally announced as coming out in February or March, though, so they had to walk that back. I know this means some people will predict that Daryl Dixon will air first, but I don't know. I also just think it's possible that it will be added to the schedule later. TWD shows are obviously the linchpin of the entire network. The announcement is unofficial at this point. So, yeah. And then WDWA talks about the promoters, right? The advertisers. It was simply saying that normally during the promotion week, trying to get advertisers to commit, they lay out what is their show plan for the year to try to convince the advertisers to commit. And it sounds like as of that year's promotional week, DC did not have an air date. And it's funny that nothing was mentioned of Daryl Dixon, so we don't know if a date was given for it or not. I know in past years that this has always been an important couple of days when they pull out all the stops and bring in all the AMC stars to grease the wheels of the advertisers pulling that figurative wallet to be part of the season. And yeah, I mean, I agree. And I can't help but wonder, though. I mean, obviously, they've done this in the past, and the advertising is really, really important. But at the same time, I don't know that it's their priority at this point. It almost seems to me like maybe they don't care that much about I mean, they always care about advertisers, of course, but it's just, again, it's just not their priority because number one, I mean, like the previous article said, if it's getting 1 billion hours or 500 million hours in 12 months of watch time, then they probably don't need to ask for advertisers. With that much watch time, the advertisers are banging on their door, right? And second, this may be the last season for these spin-offs, right? So maybe they just don't care because they're more focused on what's coming next in the renewal show, right? Anyway, I don't know if any of that's true. That's just me conjecturing. But anyway, so we just thought that this was interesting, and we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens and when and if we get a date for Dead City. So that's kind of the stuff that's come out in the last few days. Now I'm going to head over to YouTube and look at some comments. Okay, so here we go. And it's been a minute since I did videos, so I'll have to try and remember which ones these actually pertain to. So I do remember her saying that originally they wanted to shave her head and that it was kind of her first clue that she was going to be killed off, i.e., don't shave my head if you're just going to kill me because I've got to work after this. Yeah, I kind of remember that too. What's interesting to me about the whole thing is, okay, why have her head shaved though? What story purpose would that serve? Was she maybe supposed to have a larger head injury after getting taken by Grady and waking up in the hospital? They hit Carol with the car, so it's assumed that's how they got Beth too. Maybe she was supposed to have a head injury then that required surgery and therefore required her head to be shaved. If her head gets shaved after the bullet, that suggests something entirely different. She's not going to be bald from a bullet going through her head. This suggests that she would have been shaved bald because of necessary surgery performed on her after the fact. Yeah, exactly. And we don't, of course, we don't know what that pertains to because we don't have the missing 17 days. But now that we have this thing with Norman having shaved his head partly, that feels like a parallel, even though we never actually got that with Beth. The fact that she talked about it makes it almost seem like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like there was something where they shaved part of her head, and maybe we just haven't seen it yet. So yeah, good point. Good point. Thank you. Some responses. This, I don't believe that it was even mentioned about a head injury. It was just vague that they wanted to shave her head. If she was going to die, why have her shave her head? I saw the interview. They said they wanted her to have a bigger head injury. I remember her talking about it. It's possible that she was lying or something. And like I said, I'm not inferring anything about that except that she thought they might be going to kill her off because nobody was safe from that. I bet folks were often wondering if it was going to be their turn. And just because they took her off the show with a death obviously doesn't mean, it can't be right and it wasn't a real death. All right, next one. OMG, I can't I can't believe you quoted The Last Unicorn. That is such a great line. You have let your doom in by the front door, but it will not depart that way. I grew up on that cartoon. I can still quote most of it, so yeah. All right. Oh, that's the same one. Um, Oh, this was a comment on the first video I ever did. And now we're on the verge of it all coming together. Yes, we are. Thank you. All right. If they wanted to give us closure, they would have done it when the TD and BBB campaign started with the rage and the spoons. Why now randomly? Because honestly, the only reason this happened, um, in my opinion, is because the network execs freaked out about the age difference and they got terrified of doing anything that might tarnish Daryl in some way, who was the legit cash cow of the show at the time. You can see it in how even for years afterward they were too scared to commit Daryl to any kind of relationship or even addressing his sexuality at all. They kept it safe with what was working for the GA. Addressing it then would have made the perceived problem worse. Now the age difference wouldn't matter. Yep, there was also a problem that Emily herself looks young. People are still dumbfounded by that. And she was 27 when Beth was only 17. If they see her now, in whatever episode with her, it will be GA will notice that she's all grown up, and Beth would also be a matured lady by now when she returns. I also remember that Norman had to warn Connie's actress about a certain part of the fandom, or I think it was her. So maybe EK also wanted to wait a bit longer for this reason. Getting such a huge blow in her career wouldn't be so good, and it must need a lot of mental preparation, like getting ready um, to summit Mount Everest. Um, I don't know. I don't entirely agree with all of this. I think that there's no way to know for sure, so this is my opinion, but we have a lot of evidence that they had already planned out Grady um, during 4A. Like they were already putting symbolism in place for it. And a lot of people argue too that because they gave Beth Andrea's look, her beanie and everything at the end of season three, so the very final episode of season three, which was when Gimple actually took over and refilmed Andrea's death scene, he already had all of this in mind. It's possible that Emily didn't find out until the beginning of season five, but I don't know. I kind of think she knew at least something at the end of season four because there were hints to it. Anyway, so I mean, I think we have to stop thinking that the powers that be are listening to the fandom at all. They're really not. I mean, I know that they listen to us in the sense that they know what our theories are and they pay attention to what we're saying. But I mean, once again, Nicotero has come out more than one time and said they're going to tell the story that they set up to tell, no matter what the audience thinks. And that is mostly aimed toward carolers who were being very vitriolic at the time, right? And I mean, you also have to understand that there are some series out there that when they're first starting and they don't have very many viewers, they can't afford to piss off those viewers because if those viewers go away, they're going to go off the air. But that is not true of The Walking Dead. I mean, from the very first season, they have had the highest ratings of almost anyone on TV. And there have been times when certain shows have overtaken them for a time. So, like, I know that when Game of Thrones was on, it was doing more viewers every week than Walking Dead was. And this was back when everything was still airing on cable. And it was just because Game of Thrones was on at the time and it was only on for a very short time each year and all of that. So technically they were getting more viewers than The Walking Dead, but The Walking Dead certainly wasn't a low viewed show. It never has been, right? So they don't need to worry about that so much and they have a lot of freedom to do what they want to do. So personally, I just don't think that um, the reason they decided to do Coda and shoot her and do the whole death fake out and everything was because of, certain fandoms calling Daryl a pedophile. I mean, I know that was happening, but that's not why they decided to do it. They had decided to do that before that happened. That started happening not until 4B when Still happened. And it's because those fandoms were definitely picking up the romantic vibe, even if they pretend they weren't. So I don't think that the fandom's reaction had anything to do with the story that they put together. I think Gimple was planning to do this from the moment he took over. Um, so yeah, there's that. And, who knows what may have gone into it that has made it take longer and all of that. But I agree that if they had wanted to give us closure, if they had wanted to shut down TD, they could have done it very early on by just coming out and saying, nope, sorry, you're wrong. This isn't happening. And one thing that I use a lot of times as an example of that is in Consumed, when the van fell off the bridge, it was terribly, terribly unrealistic the way that it fell. And as it turned out, there just wasn't really anything they could do about that. They only had so many vans that they could throw off the bridge. I think they had four, and it wasn't working well for them. And so finally, they just had to do what they could with what they had, but they came out and immediately talked about that because they knew it was unrealistic. They're like, okay, we know, go ahead and rail about how stupid this looked because we know, but we had a schedule we had to keep, and we only had so many vans we could throw off that bridge, and it just wasn't working for us the way we wanted it to. So, this is just what we did. They could have done that same thing with Beth getting shot. Yeah, we know it was unrealistic, but this was why, and they absolute crickets. They did not talk about it at all, and so you're right that if they had wanted to give us closure and really shut us down in an effective way, they could have, and they specifically chose not to. So yeah, great comments. Thanks for these comments. Um, I never got the chance to watch your Dead City videos when they first came out, but I recently finished them, and wow, the symbolism and hints you talked about makes so much sense, especially now knowing that Beth was spotted filming for Dead City Season 3. All the signs were literally there the entire time. The moment they mentioned Beth in the last season by saying your sister, that felt like a clear indication that her return is getting closer. I know they also mentioned her parents, but the way Maggie looked when Beth was slightly mentioned, it was definitely interesting. Even months ago, when people were posting Norman's Instagram stories that included photos of Beth, it all connects. They're intentionally putting these reminders out there to get the general audience thinking about her again and preparing them for the surprise. Can't wait till we get the date and trailer for season 3. Agreed. Yeah, thank you for that. And honestly, I've probably forgotten most of the little tiny details in the early seasons of Dead City because I haven't been able to go back and watch them. So, yeah, I'm glad that you're seeing that. And I wish I could say that I would go back and watch them anytime soon, but chances are I'm not going to have the time. So thank you for that. Here's a reply. Yeah, I thought in particular season 2 was full of them when I watched it last year. All the music references. And then the most interesting thing to me was how did the Dama get the Goya painting? That painting is housed in a museum in Spain. Ooh, that was our first clue that maybe some of these groups had been interconnected and trading stuff like artwork via ship. And just the fact that it's Spain and then Daryl Dixon was in Spain, kind of like they mentioned France as a location for Dead City season 3. I mean, there's a lot of hints going back and forth that we can see that these things are interconnected. Um, I just rewatched the TWD Asks with JDM and Hilarie Burton, and that moment at the end really stood out to me when he says, "The Carol fans are going to hate you." She replies, "It's history, dude." I mean, that line wouldn't make much sense if Beth were truly gone. History implies something in the past, and where the story is now is the present. If Carol is being framed as history, then it really feels like Beth is being positioned as the future. No? Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. I assume you've seen the interview link where Gimple describes his creative process as being like Willy Wonka's lab, where elements of reality can become dreamlike and dreams can in turn become reality. This made me wonder whether such a narrative approach could be used as a way to bring Beth back through the concept of a dream becoming real. What do you think of that? Yeah, I mean, um, and this is I've talked about this before, but this is one I actually really want to go back and revisit if I can. But it was probably my favorite episode ever of Fear the Walking Dead, and I believe it was called In Dreams. And there was a woman who was with Morgan, and she was pregnant, and it was the episode where she was giving birth, and she had a dream where basically she came to believe she was going to die when she gave birth to the baby, and she got to the point where she emotionally was okay with that because she wanted her baby to live, and what is she going to do? She's big and pregnant, she's going to deliver at some point. So she was completely gearing up to be like, okay, I'm going to die in childbirth, but she told Morgan, you've got to make sure my baby gets delivered. And of course he didn't like that at all because he cares about her and was like, don't tell me you're going to die. Like, we're going to figure it out. You're going to get through this. And anyway, on and on. But they had this whole dream sequence that was very ethereal. And I just thought it was the most beautiful storytelling. I mean, I loved that episode. It totally knocked my socks off. But then what happened, okay, spoiler alert, she didn't actually die. But let's just say somebody else did. And it actually was very, very tragic, right? Because, hello, Walking Dead, very tragic. And the point is that the dream did come true, but it was a little bit skewed. It wasn't exactly true in the way she thought. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, is this Maggie's dream or is this some sort of vision or AU? Chances are whatever happens there is going to come true, but not in the way we think. especially because it looks like it's taking place in a time when there's no zombie apocalypse and no virus. And, so clearly it's not going to come true literally, but that doesn't mean it won't come true. And yeah, I think that Gimple has used this many times in various ways. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he plays with this a little bit with Beth. And that it's just another way too to warm the audience up so that they are kind of okay with her being there, even if they don't realize it. Because the first time they see her, they're going to be like, oh, it's a dream. It's not actually real. But on a subconscious level, that's getting them ready for her return so they don't completely reject it when it really happens for real. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that that what you said here definitely could be the case. So, and Megan says hyped. Me too. Very hyped. Okay. Old video, but since Emily's sighting on set, there's been a drought of info on Daryl Dixon season 4, AMC's next moves with TWD in general. So what else is there to do but catch up on all the music box I've missed? The real comment. All of us that played Destinies did so you don't have to music box. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think someone sent me something about a game, a new development, but I'm thinking that's probably an ask, so we'll probably get to that in the next video. So thank you for that. Okay, so this is on the video about the Carl Beth connection. Wow, that was a lot. I love these deep dives. I really do believe we will see Beth alive, or at least know she is alive in Dead City Season 3. I definitely think they let it leak that we will get a dream sequence so her fans and TD would watch it and not miss her reveal, as most of us had assumed that she would show up in Daryl Dixon. I myself find DC a bit boring and have not seen all the episodes. I relied on your episode analysis videos, but you better believe I'm watching now. I'm excited at the idea of Negan bringing Beth back to everyone. It absolutely makes sense to me now why he is still around. Here's hoping we get a premiere date soon. Definitely. I'm so invested in these theories now. I need them to be true. I feel you. Your analysis is genuinely mind-blowing. The way you connected the symbolisms is incredibly insightful and adds a whole new layer of meaning to the plot. The only thing I would like to add is regarding ABIBEL, because I believe that has a Semitic theology root. Abib in Hebrew means spring, fresh growth, or renewal. It is also the first month of the ancient Hebrew calendar around March or April. And El in Hebrew means God. Okay. Putting these together would suggest something like God of spring, new life, or renewal. It could also be understood as a form of birth or even sacred rebirth. What puzzles me is how to connect this to the scene where we see Daryl and Carol, but maybe it isn't something that applies specifically to them. Any clues? Greetings from Athens, Greece. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I actually really like that interpretation because I think maybe it doesn't have specifically to do with Daryl and Carol. Maybe it, um, all right, so I keep in mind sometimes the way that they marketed these early seasons. I really liked, and I'm sure you can probably still find it on YouTube somewhere. I really liked the official trailer for season 4. I liked the song, and I remember the song was about serpents. So we have, looked at that in terms of like the Ouroboros before. But I remember them marketing it in a way that it was like, this is a whole new chapter. This is like a whole new storyline. And I mean, you could theoretically say that for any show, for any new season. At the time, maybe not everybody realized it, but Gimple had just taken over. So of course it's a whole new chapter because we have a new showrunner now. But as we know now, that did not end in season 4 and then do a whole new chapter for season 5. The arc that Gimple began in season 4 is still going today. So seeing this on the prison wall, behind Daryl and Carol, it might have applied to everybody, right? Not just to them. I need to go back and look at the scene. I know that during that scene, they were looking at the fact that the walkers were gathering against the fences, and that was a problem. So I almost feel like it might be related to something that was going on in the scene, and so it was kind of a foreshadow that the prison was going to fall at some point. But the other thing that I want to point out, and let me see if I have a picture of this. Okay, so we have the ABIBEL on the wall, but I want to point out the sunshine, the sun with all the rays coming out of it, right? So, I mean, that goes well with what you put forward as a definition here. Springtime, renewal. Obviously, we need the sun to live. And we have long, long equated Beth with the sunlight that they do it when they have very soft, gentle music, and then you specifically see the sun coming through the trees in a certain way. So it's not just when the sun is out because it's out in lots of the scenes, right? But it's a specific way that they like showcase the sunlight filtering through the trees. Anyway, so we have not just the ABIBEL, but the sun on top of it. This shot is from What Happened and What's Going On, which is Tyrese's death episode and the last one that Beth was in, right? We don't see ABIBEL written anywhere in that episode, and I think that's important, but we do have the sun. So this to me is what always connected ABIBEL to Beth, because this even seems, I don't know if this is the wall. I mean, it's in yellow, whereas this one is in white and it's on the wall. But this one still feels like it might have been at the prison. It's on blacktop, right? So they're entangling those two things. So yeah, I think that I really like your definition of it, and I think it's just another way because renewal, being born again. I mean, these are synonymous with resurrection, right? So the fact that we're seeing the sun here, if you're right about what ABIBEL means, and that is as good an explanation of as I have ever heard of what it means, then this is just showing that there's going to be a renewal, right? That somebody's going to get resurrected or reborn. And it's clearly not Tyrese. I don't think it could be Lizzie or Mika or the governor, right? um, couldn't be Bob. Probably couldn't be what's the bad guy's name? Martin, right? So she's the only one it could really be. And this was the very strange, ethereal episode where we saw lots of flashes of her and her singing. And of course, Tyrese died. And this is the episode that everybody was so confused by because we were all going, okay, but what happened to Beth? They were standing in the parking lot. They had her body. Why didn't you show us what happened to her? And this is the only thing they ever showed us. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really like that definition of ABIBEL. Okay, one thing I wanted to mention too. You're My Sunshine is also either 201 or 202 of the Daryl Dixon show. Oh, I forgot about that. The Carol only episode. Carol finds a music box at Ash's graveside for his son, and it plays You're My Sunshine. So yes, definitely represents the loss of someone close. Thank you. I forgot about that detail. I'm so looking forward to this. I sent this to you in an ask that you haven't gotten yet, but Chandler Riggs has been hinting on Instagram that he's currently involved with shooting something that's at the very least zombie related, and he is hiding what the title is. It's totally not out of the realm of possibility that they'll bring other actors back too. Very often they have to shoot what do they call those? Like they have to do reshoots, and they're just for certain angles that they didn't realize they needed back when they originally filmed it, so it's very common for actors to do that. And if they need anything like that from people who were on the show in season 5, yeah, it's not at all out of the realm of possibility that Chandler or Steven or someone may also come back and do some more reshoots. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. That would be really fun if they showed us that they were on set again. It would be great for the whole reunion of it all, both inside the show and outside the show. So yeah, thanks for that. This was from 96. Hashtag Lauren did nothing wrong. Okay, guys, I think that is all of the comments that I have for right now, and I'm running pretty long here, so I'm going to end it there. And yeah, we're just going to keep an eye on things, and then I will do another video probably later in the week, hopefully before the end of the week, that will have asks in it. Okay, so thank you for being here, and I will talk to you soon.